Diana, if you could move the slide to the first one. Good afternoon. Welcome all to this afternoon's sessions from MRSI. We are starting today's Wednesday webinar, and the topic is emerging trends in the Indian media landscape. As you're aware, every year we bring experts with exclusive information and data that keeps us updated on what's happening with the media landscape and what audiences are choosing to watch and read and interact with. Next slide, please, Diana. And as some of our regular audience would know, we are in season 6 of Wednesday webinars from the Marketing Research Society of India. Wednesday webinars is our effort to bring to you cutting-edge knowledge, best practices in MR, and extending and pushing the boundaries in what we do as a community. Next slide, please. Just quickly introducing to the webinar committee. I'm Sundar Muthuraman, who's speaking on video today. I'm CEO of SL Ventures, which offers services for marketing and consulting. Samir, who's also on the call, probably not on video, is the founder and CEO of Crownit. He claims he's not a researcher and he's a technologist, but I would say he's good at both. Mukul is Vice President and Chief of Capacity Building at Purple Audacity. Much younger to the grey-haired people that I just introduced. Brings a lot of energy and potentially leads us to the path of new things that we need to take up for the webinar. And Amitabh, an experienced researcher. He heads insights and analytics for Dr. Reddy's Laboratories. And I've crossed paths with him in my earlier avatar when Unilever was my client, and he was part of that organization. Brings in excellent knowledge about the industry, and he's just recently joined our committee, and we hope to kind of benefit from his experience. Quickly about the MRSI, established in 1998, MRSI, or Marketing Research Society of India, is a unique not-for-profit association of providers and buyers of research and insight. And its purpose is to create awareness of the industry among public at large and as well as the government. Part of the effort is through this webinar. Establish and promote professional standards, provide a platform for professionals to engage, showcase their work, collaborate, and more importantly, also recognize their work. There are 2 marquee events that the MRSI hosts, the Golden Key Awards and the annual seminars on papers. If some of you are new to the MRSI and listening in today, urge you to go to our website and get more details. Next slide, please, Diana. Quickly coming to our panelists, we have a really august and expert gathering today. And these are people who are custodians of audience and audience measurement data. And probably they know more about India than a lot of us do. Let me introduce Aditya Pathak, Chief of Partnerships at BARC India. Aditya, thanks for being with us. I know you are using painkillers to control your toothache. Kind of you to take the time to be with us. I'm sure we'll benefit a lot from what you have to share. Following him,
thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. Following him would be Puneet Awasthi, is Director, Specialist Businesses and Insights for South Asia, at Kantar, and he leads this practice for South Asia. Puneet and I go back way in history when he and I co-presented a paper at MRSI. And I'm sure you will see some of that spark coming through in the content he has to share. He's very passionate about this space, and you'll hear him today. Rajesh, which is Marvel background, which he claims is not his but his son's behind him. I'm sure they share a passion, otherwise it wouldn't happen. Welcome, Rajesh. Rajesh is the head of custom research and media analytics at Nielsen India, and he's come with a very fresh, off-the-oven findings from an annual study they do on internet and internet usage behavior in the country. So you will get to see for the first time a lot of content that Rajesh is sharing with us. Thank you, Rajesh, for that. And Tejas is Vice President of the Strategy Group and Business Development at TAM Media Research Private Limited. Welcome, Tejas. He follows all of us and will be the last presenter. So all the other presenters have promised to buy him beer if they overshoot their time. So they just decide whether you want beer or whether you want more time to share content with us. Tejas will round off the session when all the other speakers will speak of audience and what they're doing. Tejas comes with the perspective of how advertisers are using this information and therefore what's happening in the market. Which categories are using which media? How many unique advertisers are there? What are the trends in advertising? And it's quite a rich set of slides that he will share with us today. Welcome all. Thanks for taking the effort and the time to be with us. Over to you, Aditya. Lead on with your session. Thanks again.
Thank you, Sundar. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
You are, Aditya. Go
on. Thank you. Essentially, what I'm going to be covering in this is the television chapter within the audience research domain that we are talking about. It's an update which MRSI, as Sundar has already mentioned, puts up, and we take you through the entire television space over here. Diana, can I get the access to move the slides, please?
Yes, you have. Please continue.
Sorry, I'm unable to move it.
Usually is a bit of a lag, Aditya. Just give it a.
Sure.
Yeah, the slides changed. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The reason why we call television the big blockbuster yet is because of the following reasons. We have the entire television ecosystem, which has 210 million TV connected homes. We have 892 odd million TV individuals, approximately 38 to 40% of the ad pie that TV enjoys today. There are 600 plus channels that get monitored and measured by BARC. Of course, there are approximately 850 to 900 odd channels that the MIB has licensed them out to. There are 24 channels in which we see the broadcast today across different regions in India. Television households have grown over the last two universe estimates that we had done, which is 2016 and 2018. 2020, although they've grown by 7%, I must add a rider that was a linear projection which we took because in the absence of a field study, we couldn't really have gone out during COVID times and done a field study, and therefore a linear projection was made. Thereby, what we believe today is that the TV households are at 210 million households across India. There is a great opportunity here because we have approximately 30% of India which isn't really connected to any television set. So there lies an opportunity for TV to grow. We hear a lot about digital and we hear a lot about how digital has been growing. With due respect, yes, a lot of it is true, but we do forget the coexistential part and the opportunity that lies ahead for TV, which is 30% of India yet to get connected, so to say. Reach of television in the year 2022 has been where 760 million odd individuals on an average have viewed television in a particular week. The time spent by the individuals on an average, which is the ATS, which is the average time spent, is around 3 hours and 35 minutes. The same ATS at a household level is a whopping 5 hours, 9 minutes, and approximately 15 average number of channels are watched per week by the individuals. So television continues to grow in terms of reach. And if you look at the absolutes, the cum reach, which is an unique individual, approximately 760 odd individuals come in on a weekly number every week to watch television. The growth largely has also been driven by the free platform, and free platform has grown 14% year on year. Although free platform is quite limited to the HSM space, which is the Hindi-speaking market, so it's yet not prominent in the southern area. It also has a very high dominance in the rural areas, where 80% of the Free Dish viewers come from the rural areas. So I think Free Dish has done a great job by connecting the rural India to television. Pay platform has immense amount of engagement. We saw the ATS, which was at a total TV level. If we were to break that down with pay and free, those are your top right quadrants. If you look at India's ATS, on an average, you have a play platform ATS, which is at 3 hours and 47 minutes, as against a free platform, which is at 2 hours and 51 minutes. The reason why free platform, we believe, would be slightly lower would be because of the lack of choices that they would have, because you have approximately 160 odd channels which are available today on DD Free Dish, as against the rest of it being on pay platform. HSM has a pretty similar trajectory to the All India. It virtually mirrors that. South remains a pay platform market with a 4-hour, 2-minute ATS. Yet it does not really have too much of prominence of the free platform, as I mentioned before. An interesting observation that we made, and in fact, it came through while we were trying to dig out some data for this presentation, to be honest. We do have channels which are limited to the geographical boundaries that they're catering their viewers or audiences to. But if you look at Bangla and Tamil, and even Telugu for that matter, you have the language channels within each of these. For example, the way to read this would be that Bangla channels today have 10% of their viewership that comes outside of the geographical territory of West Bengal. Similarly, Tamil channels would have 9% of their viewership outside of the geographical boundaries of Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry, so on and so forth. And which to us gives an understanding of how cross-pollination and how media is being consumed across India. Respective content types can be mirrored, and there can be a lot of learning for the broadcasters to look at what content may work. And television being the biggest box office, and why not? Because you have 1,600 hours of original fiction and non-fiction content offered every week, and 1,600 hours is by no means a small portion of content that is available. We've seen how 2022 has had more movie premieres than 2019. We have intentionally taken away 2020 and 2021. Those were the COVID years. We didn't have too many premieres coming at that point in time. Of course, dubbed Hindi has been the flavor of the season, where you have a huge growth in terms of the highest count of premieres, followed by Tamil, which almost grew by 50%, 2.5 times rather, more than 150% on that. Likewise with Kannada. So we have seen how the share of movie premieres have gone up. But at the same time, if you look at HSM, an important insight over here is that there is a reducing share of movies which are being premiered or being showcased on their GEC channels. If you again look at the right-hand side, which is where the southern states are, where you see Malayalam, Tamil Nadu, and Telugu yet having a substantial portion of their general entertainment dovetailed and intermixed with movies and original content which they play on their GEC networks. If we look at what today the heavy viewer spends, a heavy viewer today spends approximately 41% of their active time watching television. When we say active time, we're talking about 800 hours until 2400 hours. So out of almost 16 hours, 41% of their time, which is 6 hours and 38 minutes, is spent on television. We've always assumed that TV is a mass medium. That said, it wouldn't be fair to discount the fact that premium audiences continue to grow on television. And if you look at NCCS A and B contribution, it has moved up from 375 million individuals in 2019 to 436 in 2022. So that therefore explains why it's a great catchment area, not only for the broadcast and the content creators, but also for the advertisers at large. I'm sorry, the slide is refusing to move.
Give it a moment, Aditya.
Sure.
Let's see, there it is. I think it moved through now. Happens sometimes.
Yeah, so we were on the premium audiences. Continuing from the premium audiences, it's important to look at the premium channels as well. The HD channels, where the viewership of 67 million individual viewers tuning into HD channels in 2019, that itself has grown to 73 million in 2022. So the point that we're trying to make is, while TV is a mass medium, it is family viewing, it is about all individuals, it is about rural India, it is about the entire TV landscape, you yet have the premiumness that continues to be attached to TV, whether it is in form of audiences or in terms of the HD offerings that the broadcasters have today for their viewers. If we were to break TV down in terms of HSM versus South, South clearly is the winner when it comes to an average time spent by an individual, which is 4 hours 2 minutes to a 3 hours 21 minutes. If we were to look at a weekly average QM reach, that of course is again governed by South 88% and HSM being at 84%. The way to read it is, of the TV viewing population, 88% of the viewers do come on a weekly basis, spend at least 1 minute on television on any of their preferred channels. Daily average reach again is run extensively high by South. Highest stickiness within genres. If we were to look at GEC, which is one of the biggest genres, which is general entertainment, Tamil GEC has the maximum amount of stickiness and engagement of audiences, where a whopping 2 hours and 43 minutes is spent by the Tamil audiences watching their GEC channels. If we were to break it down to movies, Hindi movies seem to be getting a larger share of the average time spent and stickiness. In terms of news, Malayalam news is the highest in terms of ATS, which is 38 odd minutes are spent per day watching Malayalam news by the audiences for the Malayalam news channels. This is a snapshot of each of them. Television continues to be a medium of co-viewing. If we were to look at how we keep talking about how there are cord cutters and people across the household, not all of them are watching TV. But I would just want to plant this and just seed this thought that if that was the case, literally, then you wouldn't have had your higher household members and co-viewing increasing. If you look at 2019 over here, where 9 to 12 members or 5 to 8 members, which are the second and the third quadrants on the left-hand side of your screen, versus 2022, the entire 9 to 12 member co-viewing has increased from 56% to 60%. That means in a household, there are more people watching TV together as against what it used to be before. The share of solus viewing is higher amongst female viewers. That's pretty much mirrored across India, HSM and South. Nothing really to choose between geographies in this. Digital entertainment, which is your OTT, social media, and all the other search engines, etc. They depend on television to build reach, and testimony to the fact is that the number of insertions in 2019 have increased by 50% almost in 2022, where they've reached their audiences through television as a medium. Advertising volumes are on the rise. We've seen how the FCT has grown, which is your fixed commercial time, which has grown from 1,566 million to 1,786 million. There are certain sectors, but I'll leave it up to Tejas, who comes in the session right towards the end. To be fair, he'll be able to give you a better idea as to how each of these sectors have moved. That's it from me, Sundar. And I hand it over now to Puneet to take us through the entire digital overdrive.
Thanks, Aditya. Puneet, I'll just interrupt a minute or a few seconds. It's just a call out to our audience. On the GoToWebinar menu screen, you will find the questions option. This is a webinar where you can't speak with the panelists, but you can certainly ask your questions on this panel. Towards the end of the session, I'll bring up the Q&A time, and we will post these questions to the panelists. So click the questions view and add your questions. Thank you again. Puneet, over to you.
Thanks, Sundar. Thanks, Aditya. As rightly pointed out by Aditya, TV is the dominant media asset from the standpoint of reach and engagement in the country, but digital has been on an overdrive. And I'll be sharing some slides which kind of indicate the quantum of change that has occurred over the last couple of years. We're looking at data from TGI, which is only urban, amongst 15 to 55-year-old individuals. And we are seeing that the reach of internet as a medium as such, in terms of past 1 month access, has grown 14% CAGR since 2019. And at this rate, it is likely to bridge the gap versus television by 2024. And in that, OTTs are fairly significant constituent. That is also continuing to grow over the period from 2019 to 2022. So there is a new, in a sense, there is a blossoming of the digital space, and the way people are, are available now on the digital space as such along with television and other traditional media. Next, please. And it's also manifest not just in reach, but also in terms of time spent. Online videos, the time spent has gone up significantly as compared to television, which is reasonably static as such, and these are claimed estimates basis responses of consumers. And this is true across the gender divide. Both men and women are spending, those who are accessing internet are spending more time on the internet as such these days. Next slide, please. And this is leading to a significant jump in the share of digital in terms of time spent as compared to other media as such. So in 2019, the share of digital was around 24% of the time spent, which is up to about 42% of the time spent as such, which is quite a significant increase, a CAGR of 21% in terms of share, which is indicative of the fact that, and since it is leading the CAGR for reach, it indicates that amongst those people who are accessing internet and television as such, there is a shaving of time that is happening from television towards internet. And what we are seeing is that this is a lot more skewed towards the lower socioeconomic classes and smaller towns actually. So this is a very interesting feature of cord cutting, where it's not necessarily the big cities. There's a phenomenon in the big cities which I'll be coming to in a moment, but this is something that is happening strongly in the lower socioeconomic classes, particularly when we are looking at the share of time spent going up as such. Next, please. There is also a growing tribe of cord cutters. 82 million Indians have discontinued traditional TV usage and have shifted to OTT video entertainment as such, and this is about 6% of the population, skewed again to similar markets as such, the lower social, rural and the smaller towns as such. Next slide, please. This is a number which is important. 4 million people who are cord cutters are such who are accessing content via connected TVs, and these are people who, in a sense, move the large form factor, which is the television screen, onto the digital medium, and therefore these are the early days yet at 4 million users of connected TV, but this is a number that is going to continue to grow in the times to come. Next slide, please. Naturally, when we are looking at internet, online video platforms dominate, and the growth in consumption of online video platforms has been rather exponential over the last 2-3 years as such. Social media is the other large constituent in terms of access, and then there are multiple other users, but from a media standpoint, these are the two major ones, and where the gap between social media and online video has opened up quite significantly between 2019 to 2022. Next slide, please. And in terms of content that is consumed as such on OTT, essentially, if you look at the kind of content that is being consumed on OTT, what we see is that the entertainment space is being taken up by OTT, whilst linear television is a lot more dominant from the standpoint of news. So for news, one goes to television, and of course there are other formats as well, but OTT is a lot more about entertainment content as such. Next slide, please. These are some very interesting changes that have occurred as such in terms of behavioral characteristics, both in terms of reach, engagement, the way the engagement is playing out in terms of the content that people are consuming. What we are seeing is that people now actively believe that online TV streaming and a larger number of consumers in people in urban India are stating this, that online television streaming has actually changed the way they watch television. That's a growing number, and it is something that is actually in the small towns. It is also where people are talking about the fact that internet is a medium to stay in touch with people. It is also a medium where you are looking to influence and get influence. So, and there is a growing tribe. 1 in 2 people who are accessing the internet are feeling positively disposed towards using the social media platform for either giving opinion or sharing, taking opinion from other people. So it is a medium for influence as such, for influencing people. And there is therefore an emerging space for social media influencers that is a new way of engaging with the consumer. So there is the video space as such, where there is a lot, there are a lot of people who are now available on digital, but there is also this new space of digital social media influencers which need to be looked at, and we'll just come to that in a moment. So next slide, please. We estimate from a study that a report that we published last year, 26% of urban India follow at least one social media influencer as such across various platforms. This is skewed towards males, younger population, upper socio-economic class, graduates and above, and actually cuts across pop strata. Moving to the next slide, please. In terms of the platforms which are, and there is no surprise here, it is Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, which are the popular platforms to connect with, which are preferred by consumers to connect with influencers. In terms of short video formats, it is again fairly known entities as such. So YouTube Shorts, Snapchat, Facebook short videos, and then we've got Mod, ShareChat, etc. Next slide, please. Interestingly, the reason why people follow social media influencers is because people are looking for information about products and services. They're not necessarily seeking out influencers because they believe that they are going to get some promotions and discounts. The principal reason why people are following influencers is because they get information or knowledge, or they actively seek out reviews from these influencers before making a purchase decision. And then when we are looking at the younger set as such, the influencers help them to discover new products, and that is really the role that influencers are playing fairly significantly as such in this new space of digital media engagement as such. Moving to the next slide, please. And further, approximately about 3 in 5 of the consumers are likely to try a product based on an influencer's recommendation. So there's a fairly strong predisposition towards influencers and products that they recommend. There's a large constituency of people who are following influencers, which is 1 in 4 as such of the TG that we are measuring, which is 50 to 55-year-old people in urban. People are 59%, or 3 in 5 are likely to try products that are recommended by influencers. And influencers do play a role in the purchase journey of the consumer, and this is something that we're going to be tracking over the next few years, including this year, and we should see how this influencer marketing space is going to evolve. And an important point here that I wanted to make was that the impact of influencers in terms of getting people to buy a product as such is the highest in the older age bands, in the upper socio-economic classes as such, and principally around health and wellness categories. So this is something that needs to be noted, and there is high trust as such amongst the older people for social media influencers as compared to celebrities. Next slide, please. This is, we've also looked at rural India. We do a study called the Rural Barometer, and where we've seen that digital has, over the last couple of years, comparing December 21 versus December 22, it has increased its footprint amongst the rural audiences. And whilst it's increased its footprint in rural digital there is also an aspect of credibility that is cropped up as such. So when we're looking at credibility, we had a very specific question around trust or with respect to content that is access on online video, on social media, on instant messaging, and via social media influencers. What we see is that between December 21 and 22, there is a significant decline in trust for content that is available on a variety of digital media. With the exception of social media influencers that are more or less held ground at the level that they were in December 21. So that again points to the fact that content that is backed by influencers tends to be a lot more palatable to people as such, and that's something that needs to be kept in mind. So that is there is an aspect of digital video which is creating new new occasions of engagement with the consumer. There is also in the social media space the influencers, which are a significant player and potentially a way of reaching consumers or influencing consumers in times to come. Thank you. That's my segment. So moving on to Rajesh.
Thanks, Puneet. Just a quick call out. There was a question saying, can we get this presentation? Like I had announced earlier, the content of this session, including the recording, will be available at the MRSI website and you can access it. Rajesh, over to you.
Thanks, Sundar, and thanks, Puneet. I think you've set up the next stage of the discussion pretty clearly. Diana, if you can have the next slide, please. Okay, so Nielsen does a study which is called the Internet Universe Estimate, which is a recent sample across both urban and rural India. And this is done for 10 years, 12 years plus individuals. So we talked to at least 28,000 homes and 70,000 individuals across the country. And you can see a quick description of how those statistics stand out here in terms of all India, urban and rural, and even the male-female standing. Diana? So one thing which, so a lot of advertisers, marketeers, people who need to talk to rural India have this problem of how do we connect? Typically, it used to be termed as a media dark economy, very difficult to talk to people about brands, very difficult to introduce brand distribution. Logistics was an issue, which has, of course, been taken care of by the e-commerce companies. But if you look at the internet penetration, if you just look at the India numbers in between, and then you have urban on your left and rural on your right, if you're looking at your screen, you will see two areas where the kind of catch up that urban or rural India has done with urban is phenomenal. Specifically, the ones that are kind of highlighted in green, which is video watching and online music. So these two areas are something which people both in rural and urban have enough time to do. I think this is also a great story to tell in the next couple of years when we believe a lot of the others which are currently in the gray will kind of get close to each other as far as the numbers are concerned. And I think that's the story that we need to tell ourselves, that one of the days when rural India was one part of the world and urban was separate, I think the divide is decreasing. And there are multiple reasons, and we just can't put everything on COVID. There are multiple reasons, whether it's infrastructure, government spending, but a lot of it has actually resulted in internet penetration and internet usage. And video watching has emerged as possibly one area where both urban and rural India kind of talk to each other as far as numbers are concerned. Diana? And this is a quick split, which is still male heavy in terms of when we look at video watches, we still believe that the male and female split is still 60 to 40. Has it changed over the last 5 years? We really don't know. Will it change in the next couple of years? That's when possibly we'll look at a next Internet Universe Estimate, which is currently on field to tell us how that shift has changed. But this is how the overall demos look like. If you look at east, west, south, and north, they more or less follow the same thing vis-a-vis north, which is where the male-heavy audience is pretty clear to see 64 and 36. Now, this is one very important slide. The one with 3 circles, slide number 44, please.
Not sure who is taking the control.
I don't have
it.
Sure. I don't have it. I think this is a very interesting slide, and this poses a lot of questions. So Aditya was speaking about television, and Aditya also clearly stated that the average time spent on TV has increased, and not marginally. I wouldn't say substantially, but it's increased. Now, if you look at daily time spent on the smartphone between a Jan 20 and a December 22, it has moved by an hour. And this is not a number which is just a rural number or an urban number. It is smartphone usage across the country. Now, if you just go a little deeper, what we can see is in urban India, we can understand that possibly the whole concept of working from home, not traveling and spending hours in your car or bike or a train, possibly would have resulted in more hours spent on your mobile phone or on your television. It would also mean that we're working less, but that's besides the point. I'll not take that away from any of us. I guess we work equally hard. Look at rural India. So I don't think they've ever had a problem with commuting to office, because rural India is not exactly a salaried class-driven economy. It's more entrepreneur or farming or village or stuff like that, which is not exactly what we are used to. Look at the way time spent on TV as well as their smartphones have actually increased, which tells another story. In terms of they are now more aware of things around them, and something has worked in their favor, right? People are spending an hour more, and of course this is an average, so I'm sure that if you actually do deeper dives, you'll figure out that possibly rural India has contributed more to the average time spent on the smartphone than urban India, but that's a deeper detailed discussion we can have some other time. But these are great signs and stories of how entertainment has crossed any class divide, any socio-economic divide, any age divide, any NCCS barrier to come to a stage where we are saying that a lot of people are spending a lot of time on the smartphones. Good, bad, ugly is secondary, but that's true. That's true, and in front of you that 4 hours and 20 minutes on a daily average is being spent on smartphone if I look at rural and urban India. And that's a great story to tell. There are great opportunities also for advertisers, researchers, marketers to connect with people and understand them even better, preferences, choice, brands, and all of that. Next slide, please, Diana. Diana? Okay, great. So again, now just a quick thing. We've always, as a country, we like to compare ourselves to smarter economies, larger economies, USA being primarily one of them. We've always compared ourselves to the West, and normally when we talk West, we don't normally mean a UK or Netherlands. We normally invariably allude to USA. Now look at this. Now, say for example, if you look at green, the first one, where we're talking about social media, audiences in India to those in US, and we're talking about a percentage. Now, we also need to understand that we are 3.7 times the size of that country in terms of pure numbers. We are 1.42 billion as per latest numbers, though the census numbers have still not been done because the census has not been done. For an average, based on some statistical sourcing, we say India currently is poised at about 1.42 billion people. USA would be maybe what, 450 million? So even that 30% and 24% as a percentage, India was lower, still is lower as far as social media is concerned. But 24% of the population in the cells that we want to talk about is still huge as a number. So look at the opportunities that this particular slide gives all of us. However, as far as video watching is concerned, we're nearly 2.5 times what you as a consumer as far as video content is concerned. As a percentage, let's even forget the old numbers. If we look at games, I guess we lag behind in percentage. We obviously gaming off your mobile phone, not on your mobile phone, is an expensive proposition. So I think that's where we still have PS4s and a lot of stuff coming into that. But if I look at gaming on the mobile, we're still back behind US. Same for the others other than communication, where if you see that 19.9 number, which is higher than what US represents, most of that is chats and using apps on the phone to do video calls. So that's how it pans out. Again, opportunities galore. Clearly indicated by how the Indian consumer is using the smartphones and time spent on smartphone and activities on the smartphone. And again, this divide is across urban and rural. We can also definitely sometime have a look at them separately. But currently, this is what India looks like as far as activities on the smartphone is concerned. Diana? If I just look at the top line of text, which is there on that slide, it says close to half of smartphone users accessed OTT apps. And here we're excluding YouTube. Though high, still lower than other major digital categories, YouTube has been accessed by almost all. And of course, this is when we do the survey, it's L1M typically in research parlance is last 1 month, where we see that if you look at category reaches, OTT, though at 44%, 48%, is still much lower in terms of access. And we're not talking about time spent here. That was the earlier sheet or the earlier chart in terms of overall time spent distributed among the various activities. We are saying that as a percentage in the overall smartphone users, what do you access in your mobile phone? So video streaming, social media, shopping, mobile payment, and games rank way above what OTT is. And that I'm not talking about awareness. I'm not talking about AWOD for subscribers. I'm not talking about the share of screen in terms of screen size. This is just a statistical data point which says that video streaming still is the most accessed app in your smartphone, followed by social media, shopping, mobile games, and then OTT. So again, this tells you a particular story. And before we move on to the next slide, there is another thing that when we talk about connected India. So here so when Aditya talked about, see, television. So when we say that we believe that, oh, digital is moving, so television is getting lower. Oh, television is moving up, which means time spent on a smartphone or digital content. But that's not true. I guess content is something that we view when we want it today, the way we want it, and through a device that we're comfortable with, or it's in our possession at a point in time. So you will see, and again, this is something that you can take offline sometime, that you start watching now, whether it's linear TV or whether it's non-linear content on a large screen in your hall or your bedroom, you carry on with that on your mobile phone. So one is collective viewing or co-viewing, as Aditya was pointing out, which is the way TV has always worked in this country. You move on to a piece of phone which is in your hands or with you while you're commuting or even while you're working, and then you see the end of a particular content series, again, linear or non-linear, on the TV. So we are seeing a lot of individuals using both the screens, 6 as well as 32, just in typical parlance, to actually use and utilize and view content. So it's not a story of if this or that. I think it's TV and the smartphone. And that's something that we need to wake up to and not say that, of course, for the advertiser, which Tejas will definitely come into, it's a split of a pie, right? If I don't want to talk to the same audience again and again, and I know that audience is dueling itself both across the linear TV window in terms of a screen and a mobile phone, how do I do? But what a bigger takeout is that you can't alienate an individual and say, oh no, he's a 32 screen inch watcher and the other one is a 6-inch screen watcher. I think that divide is fading, the lines are blurring, and that is what we need to take cognizance of when we are planning communication or PR or marketing activities. Diana, next one. I'd also like to do a time check. Okay. Diana, next slide, please. Right. And I think this is possibly the last slide, I'm not exactly sure, but when we looked at categories in terms of when you're watching content, one thing that has stood out significantly or dramatically is drama itself. So if you look at any other category in terms of percentage, whether it's reach or engagement in terms of average time spent, drama still clearly rules the roost, and you can see the sheer percentage. I can't see the right-hand side of the screen, but on the left, when you look at reach percentage among cat users, it is at a significant 68%, followed, I guess, by romance and action, which are on the same lines, lastly crime. So again, if I look at the type of content that India is watching in terms of reach as well as time spent, as well as what is being created, you really can't watch what you're not creating or what we're not creating. So that's drama is being dramatized, and I think people have taken a liking for it, and the numbers are clearly resonating in this particular sheet. So that's the kind of content that is doing very well when we're looking at the smartphone and what's being watched, and the time spent on what's being watched. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'd like to now introduce Tejas, who's Vice President at TAM, and he will kind of take us through the shift in advertising trends.
Thanks, Rajesh. You don't need to buy Tejas beer. I guess none of you guys need to, so you largely kept the time. Tejas, welcome on board. So, but I guess Tejas, you get more time to share with us some very interesting facets of how advertisers are using this, context of shifting preferences, increasing consumption of video on handset, and obviously a combination of other media like print and radio as well. So over to you, Tejas, who probably has the closest view of how advertisers are putting their money. What are they investing behind? Thanks for being with us, and over.
Sure. Thanks, Sundar. Hello, everyone. So I'm Tejas from TAM. Diana, can you give me the control?
You have it, Tejas. Please click on the
Thanks.
presentation.
Yeah, done. So in this session, I'll be covering the advertising shift the industry has seen across all the four mediums, that is TV, print, radio, and digital. We will first start with looking at the ad volumes of 22 and compare the same with the pre-COVID period, that is 2019. So in terms of ad volumes, it's been a very good year as mediums like TV, radio, digital, all have experienced high growth. Print has seen a small dip, but is on a recovery mode for the past 2 years. But mediums like TV and radio have grown by around 20 to 25%, which we saw in the first session as well. And digital by around 79% in terms of volumes. If we look at the count of categories or advertisers contributing to around 70% of the total volume, then for TV, the numbers have shrunk, which confirms that there are advertisers and categories which have opted out of the medium, but the ones who have stayed back on television have grown their volumes. On the other hand, for digital, we see a growth in the number of advertisers, denoting that the medium is much more fragmented and has seen a lot of new advertisers coming onto the medium. If we compare the top categories advertising on TV in 2019 versus 2022, then we don't see much difference. Almost 8 out of the top 10 categories are common across both the years. Even after heavy reduction of volumes, the category toilet soap still tops the chart for 2022 as the highest active category on television. Moving on to print, where along with the overall shrinkage in volumes, we also see some movement in the top 10 chart. Cars, which was the leader in 2019, has been overtaken by properties real estate as the top category on print in 2022. Looking into radio, as mentioned earlier, the medium has seen an ad volume growth of around 25% last year. The share of properties real estate has further grown on radio from 9% to 14%, which indicates that the actual volume for this category has almost doubled up on radio. Just like 2019, retail continues to be a focus on radio, as we see jewelry, clothing, electronic retail outlets, all available in the list of top 10 categories. For digital, along with high ad volume growth across the medium, we also see a lot of new categories like software, e-com education, gaming, featuring in the top 10 list, which were missing in 2019. Now, most of these new digital advertisers, which were available on TV or print, have now also added digital in their overall ad pie, which we'll see on the next slide. So here, the exclusive advertiser count on TV and print has declined, and the common advertisers across mediums have grown, which indicates that these players have expanded their ad portfolio outside TV and print, mainly digital. Now, looking at creative level data, if we segregate all the TV video commercials into 3 buckets, that is the shorter edits, which are less than 20 seconds, the mid and the longer edits, which are more than 40 seconds, then maximum volume growth can be seen coming from the shorter edits. And the same phenomena can be seen on radio as well, where shorter audio creatives have seen maximum growth. On print, we saw a growth in the average ad size by around 29%, which denotes comparatively larger print ads as compared to 2019. Looking at ad volumes across genres on television, general entertainment channels, GECs, have seen maximum gain of around 25%. Next, we deep dive into digital to decode the massive growth that the medium has seen last year. So as mentioned earlier, as compared to TV, which grew at around 20%, digital saw a 4x growth of around 79% last year. Some of the key sectors like services, BFSI, consumer durables are the ones which registered the highest growth rate in 2022. The advertiser and the brand count available on digital has also grown by almost 4 times. Whereas if I compare that with television, we see a decline of around 10%. Year on year, we see an increase in the number of common advertisers using both media, TV and digital. And hence the exclusive advertiser tally has degrown on TV. These are some of the leading sectors on TV versus digital. While food and beverages leads the TV chart, we have services leading the digital media. If we look at the advertiser count on key digital platforms, Facebook itself has more than 47,000 advertisers, whereas YouTube has close to 30,000 advertisers. Along with digital, we have also noticed one very key trend emerging, and that is regional advertising. We'll start with print first. Now, if we bucket some of these key regional categories like retail, textile, then we see a 15 to 20% growth in the overall ad volumes across key markets like Bihar, Rajasthan. So even though we see an 8% decline on the overall medium, still print regional advertising has seen a growth across some of these mentioned markets. Similarly for radio, for markets like Gujarat, Maharashtra, we see high growth for regional advertising. And the same trend can be noticed on TV as well, where key markets have seen a very high growth as compared to 2019. So I conclude here by highlighting some of these key regional categories which have shown consistent growth for the past few years. And we expect them to grow further in the coming years as well. And this becomes kind of a potential growth opportunity for all the mediums to tap in the future. That's all from my end regarding changes in the advertising pattern. Thank you. Sundar, all over to you.
Thanks, Tejas. That was quite a summary in terms of how changing audience behavior and patterns is impacting advertising. Mukul, my co-host and part of the webinar committee, will take on the Q&A. Welcome, Mukul. We missed you at the beginning of the session. And if I can request the panelists to switch on their cameras, please. There's a whole host of questions that our audience has asked, and obviously Mukul will watch the time and keep questions to what we can do before 2 p.m. Over to you, Mukul. And before I kind of sign off, a big thanks, Aditya, Puneet, Rajesh, and Tejas for being with us and sharing some wonderful content. Mukul, all yours.
Thank you, Sundar. Okay, so there are, as I go through the questions, there are a few clarifications that we generally sort of see in the questions. I think a couple of questions for Puneet that I heard were that do you believe influencers are following, and that influencers are being followed not just for information, but also for are becoming one of the primary sources of entertainment on social media? And I think just a continued conversation, because I think this one's also for you, which is that cord cutter. There was a mention of cord cutters being a phenomena more in rural India. It was just a clarification because it seems like a phenomena which seems more urban than rural. So over to you, Puneet, and then I'll ask the other question.
So I'll start with the first question as such, which is around influencers and the role of influencers. When we ask them the question about why do they kind of follow influencers across various categories, so it could be a beauty influencer, it could be an influencer for cookery, so those kind of influencers as such that one is looking at. And and therefore it depends on the nature of the influencer and his play as such. When we are looking at those influencers who are very strongly anchored to specific categories as such, it is about seeking knowledge and understanding. So it could be a travel influencer. It is about knowing more about travel. It could be a health and wellness influencer. It is therefore about improving my levels of knowledge about health and wellness. Entertainment is a part of the influencer ecosystem, but when we are looking at these segments within the influencer ecosystem, it is principally about knowledge and to cross-check products or services that one is evaluating or considering. The other question around cord cutters. So actually in rural, because of the proliferation of the mobile device, there is a certain amount of time that is now being spent on the smaller form factor, which therefore is leading to a shaving of time and moving away some of the time that was too digital. And similarly, when we are looking at people who altogether discontinued, that too is a lot more pronounced in rural, because now you have the smaller form factor that is available to people, and they are consuming that much more content on their respective devices. So, and this is data that comes from a fairly large study, iCube, which we do every year, 70,000 sample size across urban and rural. So there is a phenomena that is occurring, particularly in rural. It is almost like the landline disappearing as we move down the pop strata because of the mobile phones proliferating.
Got it. Thank you so much, Puneet. I think it sort of answered another question that was here. Now, in the interest of time, because we've just got some 3 minutes left, we just wanted to finish with one question, and we can go across the table and just give everybody 30 seconds, 45 seconds to respond on that. What are the broader trends? What are the key trends? You can talk about any top two trends in how advertising content is actually changing. Content is changing to the changing audience preferences. Like trend in how advertising content is changing to the changing audience preferences, and if you can also throw in your own personal perspective on print and radio, because that's also essentially was something that was being talked about in terms of the company. So we can start with Tejas, because I see him right on the top of my screen, and then we can just go around the table and just everybody. So Tejas, quickly, time watch out, 30-45 seconds, quickly top trends that you can talk about.
Sure. One clear standout that we see is basically grabbing the attention. For example, when I go back and when I compare this to 2022, the overall creative size has shrunk, which means the content creators have limited time to get to the attention and get to the point for any viewers. Similarly, if I look at print, the overall ad size has grown, which means again it's the point of grabbing the attention of the viewer. So this is one very important shift that we see, that the overall attention span of a viewer decreasing, and that's why the overall media changing in order to accommodate that decreasing attention span.
Okay, thank you so much, Tejas. Aditya, I have you on my screen next. If you can just talk about a few trends about how advertising content is changing audience preferences.
So I wouldn't really know how advertising content is changing, because if we look at television, we've seen a trend, as they just pointed out, that you have decreasing duration of commercials. I mean, that can actually be a function of a lot of things at play. That could be not just a creative call. It also depends on budgets. It depends on the economy. It depends on what you're wanting to communicate. Are you brand building, or are you trying to put something which is more an action-oriented communication? So that aside, I think the larger part of what content creation is happening on the overall screen. I mean, today we know for a fact that although we keep talking about how there is a diminishing line between the screens, whether it's a 32-inch or a 6-inch screen that you have on your mobile phone. I think the broadcasters today are in a good spot as far as content creation goes, and therefore most of their offerings today also will be on the OTT platform. which may be getting accessed, as per what even Puneet and Rajesh said, more on your 6-screen-inch platforms. I think that gives an opportunity for them to distinguish that and yet control the screen. Now, the screen time control is more important because as a content creator, you're actually looking at ensuring that you have your content being viewed, whether it's at a larger screen or a shorter screen frame. So once that, I think, is something that's more acceptable within the ecosystem, content gets created, and I'm sure advertising follows with that as well.
Got it. Rajesh, if you want to add anything there. I think you're muted, Rajesh.
So fundamentally, I think,
yes.
can you hear me now? Great. So
Yes,
I
yes.
guess if I look at advertising content only, and I'm not talking about any other kind of content, how advertising has moved, I think right now, I guess it's more believable, because earlier it was like all fancy and somewhere up there. It's a little distant from me being able to touch that kind of advertising content always. Maybe sometimes over the top, maybe a lot of melodrama in advertising. But today, I guess it's more real. It emanates from real life situations. And I guess it's much more stark. So it was always positive reinforcement earlier. Today, some of it is not always positive reinforcement. And barring ones which you'd rather see less of, I think overall the advertising space has seen great maturity in the last maybe 5 to 7 years without COVID, without the smaller large screen. And I think that maturity needs to pull on. We are becoming consumer conscious rather, as far as advertising is concerned. Sometimes we underplay what we need to say because sometimes understated is more stated. But I think it's a positive movement in the right direction, where advertisement creators are being more sensitive toward what the audience actually wants to see and hear, rather than what the brand always wants to showcase. I think those lines are getting finer and defined now.
Got it. Thank you, Rajesh. Puneet, last 30 to 45 seconds for you to just close.
So I would just add one bit here, that as there are many more touch points that brands today have, when reaching out to consumers and sharing different messages and building their brands on. It is important to ensure that the messaging is delivered to the consumer in the context of that particular platform or form factor. So that which works on instant messaging, which is really a virality driving medium, is not necessarily most appropriate for say a larger form factor as such. So it is important to look at how you're going to be ensuring consistency of messaging and yet develop messaging that is delivered in context.
Great. Thank you so much. I think two things have happened today. One is that we've done, for a large panel that we had today, we've done fantastic on time. So very well done, I think. And the other thing which has happened, and it's a reiteration of what Dinah was saying when we were just catching up before the session, that it has been a rockstar session. I think because we've had a couple of asks about people saying that, hey, can we get access to this deck? So yeah, so I think that it's happened very well. So is there anything else that you'd like to mention before we close? I think you're also muted, Sundar.
I am. Thank you. All I can say is a very big thank you to all our panelists for the effort and time they've taken to be with us. I hope you enjoyed the session as well. And, mind you, we will call you back again next year because you are our rock stars. With that, obviously keep watching the spot and announcements from MRSI about the next webinar. We usually have it on Wednesdays, as you already know. The session is most likely to be on the 15th of March. With that, thank you very much, and a very good afternoon to all our audience. And if you need more information, get on to www.mrsi.co.in. Thanks, Tejas, Aditya, Puneet, and Rajesh. Thanks, Mukul. Good evening. And
have a good day.
Thank you for having us.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.